to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. How's everyone doing today? Very Marvel-heavy day. Because Miss Marvel came out last night, so I'm talking about Miss Marvel now. And then, this evening, there is, Thor: Love and Thunder, making its debut, in theaters. So, that's also happening today. Which will be fun. Looking forward to seeing that. So, here we are in the morning, talking about Miss Marvel. I like this show. I do like some of the decisions the show has made. Some of the decisions Here's the thing. The show is kind of trying to be too much, I think. In that it's trying to be an origin for her character. It's trying to explain everything she does and why she does what she does, as well as her family dynamics and all of that. And also at the same time, it's trying to be this kind of like teenage slice of life, kind of like John Hughesian thing. Like, I feel like the issue is it's trying to do all of that at once, and it's kind of not filling any one of them properly. Like, you're not properly hitting all the marks that you should if you're trying to do all of that in one show. You're never going to be able to. And that's not a dig at the show. That's just a dig at you only have a finite amount of time, and you're spending a lot of it in service of one story over another, and neither story is the one that is getting the full attention. So like half this episode is the lead up to explaining Kamala being back in during the partition, and I don't think that I think the show could have been better spaced out, so this isn't happening in the episode before the finale. And then what happens in this episode feels very final. And it feels like, well, this is what this should have been going towards. Like, when we should have gotten to this point in the story, when we, like, as the, what's it called? As the plot, like we should have gotten to this point in the story probably next episode, rather than in this episode, and then making the finality of the show being her with this other person who has similar powers now, and then that versus damage control. It makes it feel like we watched the end. You know what it feels like? It feels like the Batman, kind of. And when you watch the Batman, it's like they catch the Riddler, and the Riddler goes to Arkham, and then he has that meeting with him, and that should be the end of the movie. But then there's another half hour tacked on, and you're like, well, what the fuck is this? And it's like, well, okay, so now they're going to flood the city, they're going to do all of that, and it's like, alright, but, like, why? Like, it's kind of a silly, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. That, like, out of all of that, and it's just the kind of thing where it's like, okay, so now we're going to do this. Now, the stakes aren't exactly as high. And the other thing is, with the thing with the djinn, it's like, how high were the stakes of her not letting them? But apparently, there was a solution where they go back, except for some people who die, because it's very obviously Terrigenesis. They go back to their home dimension, and then come back to, and she gets to keep the bangle, and the bangle's not destroyed or anything. So, like, it does call into question, like, the logistics of this whole thing. But it's like, well, couldn't you just kept the bangles and opened the portal and been like, all right, fine, fuck you. You want to go through the portal so bad? That's fine, you know? It's like, it's kind of similar to the issue with America Chavez's powers being the focal point of Multiverse of Madness, where it's like, you know, Wong actually asked her in Multiverse of Madness, it's like, why can't you just make America open a portal for you to the dimension you want to go to? Why is that? And then she gives an explanation, and I think that what would have served that a little bit better was an explanation that, like, she's being corrupted by the Darkhold, and the Scarlet Witch is kind of taking over, and the Scarlet Witch is this other entity, and it wants to go and take over the universe. Not so much, you know, see that, and this is a way to convince her to do that. It's that, and I think that would have, you know, been a little bit clearer there. But I think that, like, if we look at like this, in the context of Miss Marvel, I feel like it's trying to be too many different things, and at the same time, it's not actually succeeding in any of them. It's just kind of leaving the audience wanting more. And again, it's like, if the only positive that comes out of the show is making people like Iman Vellani as as Miss Marvel, then, I mean, mission accomplished. Like, if the entire point of this show is to introduce that character, so that when we get to the Marvels, we know who Miss Marvel is, then, again, did a great job with that. And you know, it's like, you know, Iman Vellani's great, and you know, like, she's very endearing as a character. She captures the essence of the character, even if the powers are slightly different, and it still feels right, and she's doing a great job. I just feel like the show around her could be better. And, like, that's not to say that there's anything particularly wrong. Like, I feel like had they committed earlier on to explaining what the clandestine, like, the clandestine just want to go back to their dimension. So, like, the show never gave a real reason why she couldn't go back to her dimension. Why she couldn't let them go back to their dimension and then just keep the bangles. Why do they need the bangles to do that? And it's like, oh, well, that's not really, like, it, because at that point where that was happening, the show is still focused on introducing, like, Kamala's supporting cast and getting us on board with everything else going on in her life, which is fine. But there's definitely a way to tell this story without the clandestine and without all of that would make the show work better. Or a way to tell the story solely focused on the clandestine and all of that, and have that work better. But it's just this mixture of both is making it that way neither story is particularly well served. I don't know. I feel like I think next episode we get a Brie Larson cameo, even if it is in a post-credit scene, because this is going to lead directly into next July's movie, The Marvels, because it was the movie for, It was the movie for, see, that's some bullshit right there. No, I saw a cop pull someone over, and he had the police car was painted to look like it was a sold police car. Like, they sold it at auction or something, and then the logos were all painted over, and they didn't have sirens on top or lights on top, and he got pulled over by that. They're getting really crafty, these fucking these cops out here, to get people for tickets. Do I think that, I mean, I'm just gonna stick with it. I think the show is fine. I feel like the issue that is going on with kind of Marvel TV in general is that it still feels like I'm watching a movie. But the problem is, instead of it being a 2-hour, 2.5-hour movie, it's a 6-hour movie. And they're breaking it up every hour or so. And those aren't always natural stopping points for it. And the thing is, too, it's like some of the things wouldn't gel in a movie, and they're kind of just doing them anyway. It's just kind of weird to me that these are that this decision happened on this scale, and it's, I don't know, I feel like they should have, like, I like this direction they're going in. Like, that's the thing that I've noticed a lot about Phase 4, is that Phase 4 has been a lot of, we're going to let the storytellers tell the story they want to tell, or we're going to let the director do what they want to do. We're going to, and like, you know, for better or for worse, these movies have been very director-driven and very creative team-driven. And it hasn't been a lot of, well, we're headed towards the Infinity Saga, so Thanos is coming, we need to get the story here, so here's a lot of what's happening. Like, granted, I know they're headed towards Secret Wars, and every movie needs to introduce pieces of the puzzle to get you there, but each episode, or, you know, each property has felt distinct, and has told the story it wants to tell without necessarily focusing on the interconnectivity, which is fine. Like, this is all people have been asking for the better part of, like, a decade at this point when it comes to Marvel Studios, is you don't have to focus on the connectivity, don't focus on the overarching story, let the directors and the showrunners tell the story they want to tell, but, you know, they're doing what people asked for, and everything is kind of feeling different. And I feel like that's what I'm going to go into with Thor, is that, you know, this is going to feel like Taika Waititi's movie. This is what Taika Waititi does. This is going to be his movie. I'm looking forward to seeing how this show ends, because I think there's only one episode left. Because I feel like if there's another 3 episodes left, that's a little too long. So there better only be 1 episode left. But problem being, I don't think necessarily that it's I don't think it's a particularly what's I'm looking for here? It's not a particularly well kind of executed situation, I don't think. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? Roadwork, body exit, I gotta get off at. You couldn't put up a sign that says that it was going to be closed. Look, I mean, let's just finish off Miss Marvel strong. That's what I would say. And, look, if it sticks to the landing and we get to see her costume at the end of it, and we get to see, how she kind of meshes into the wider world, I feel like a lot of people will be satisfied by that. I mean, look, that's what we're here for. At the end of the day, we're here to see these characters and how they're going to fit into the broader Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, you know, I feel like the core story with Kamala, like, and you know, if the show, if we're going to define it solely based on introducing us to and endearing us to Kamala, the show is an overarching success, complete, unbridled success. If we're going to define the show by executing a single plot line that's not just introducing this character, that's when we get into a little bit more of a dicey area where it's like, all right, well, what do we get? Like, what are we getting into here? Like, what is the defining part of this, if that's the case? If we're gonna define it by that, I think that is a harder argument to make that the show succeeds. So yeah. So we'll wrap up there for today. Don't think there's anything else really to talk about. I wrapped up Sizzle Reel last night. That script is done. I have to format it for Kindle, and then that will be out in August, next month actually, with a little bit of a stealth release there. figured, why bother writing shit and then leaving it in the drawer waiting for someone else to find it? Like, you know, I can sit here and I can, you know, enter them in contests and all of that. Or I could release them and just let people buy them if they want to. And, you know, maybe someone will, you know, make it into a movie. Can't guarantee that, but, you know, who knows? It's probably better off than, you know, blindly entering them in contests and hoping for the best. This one is a little bit of a departure from what we've had in the past. This one is more of a horror / thriller, close to a thriller probably. I don't think the body count is quite high enough for it to be a horror slasher. I'd say probably a thriller, but it's more grounded. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the response to this. I think I've done something different here, and there's very little tying into anything else I've written. Kind of like, what's it called? And this was teased in 10 Plots at a Time. There's a tease to this book in 10 Plots at a Time. In the scene where they're looking into, you know, the time stream, and there's all little nods to other stuff. Little dialogue clippings from other books, from like In the End, and I think it was In the End, I think it was Swan Song, but it's all these little dialogue clippings from all over, you know, the various books, and then this one there's a dialogue clipping from too, because I think the only thing that this book has in common is Christine Coleman is a player in it. She's got a pretty big role, but I know that she has historically been kind of a hero, like a superhero in the others, in the same way that, like, you know, she's, you know, the alchemist, but don't expect things like that. It's a very grounded version of the character. There is some mild metaphysical shenanigans, but, you know, we're going to keep that. That'll be all we'll say on that. Besides that, there are some, that's the only real tie to anything else, is her appearance, and even that is cursory at best. Because I think if someone were to walk into this book not knowing what it was, not knowing who that character is, it would still work. It would still work pretty well, I think. Because it's not dependent on you knowing that, like, oh, and she's gone on these multiverse hopping adventures, and she's, you know, she's magic and all of that. And, like, the version of her we see here and the version of her that's going to be in Echo Delta Part 1 are two very different versions of the character. And the reason I split Echo Delta Part 1 into two parts, Part 1, Part 2, is because there's a story I want to tell in the book, and I think putting all of it into Echo Omega would disservice Echo Omega, because it would either make the start really slow, or it would make the cut between the two stories, the main plot, which was the plot from the beginning, and the and what would have been the B plot, it would have been a little bit not great. I think the intercut between the two. So splitting it off and doing two separate two separate stories is definitely the way to go. So it's just going to be a 4-part trilogy, I guess, and that will be coming in, and then that will be. I've said prelude. This is the beginning of a big event. I'll say that much. But that's all I'll say for today. And I'll give more information on the release of Sizzle Reel pre-order and all of that later today when I do the Thor episode. So, until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.